Hey guys, tonight we're slipping quietly into the shadowed edges of ancient Babylon, where the scent of crushed mint rises from beneath your sandals and river breezes curl between sun-baked alleyways. It's the end of a long, hot day, and the last farmers are pulling their oxen off the canal banks, their feet slick with the silt of 1,000 years. Date palms rustle overhead, swaying like they know something you don't. And somewhere nearby, a flute plays off-key, but with feeling. You're not entirely sure how you got here. One minute you were adjusting your pillow, maybe scrolling a little too late, and the next you're standing at the edge of a road paved with ancient limestone, worn smooth by 100,000 forgotten footsteps. You're holding a small travel satchel filled with not much. A few figs, some barley bread, no real plan. And to be honest, you probably won't survive this if it turns out Babylonian dinner parties involve crocodile wrestling or volunteering for royal plumbing projects. But hey, you made it this far. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop your location and local time in the comments so we can map our sleepy little community across time zones. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The road before you winds gently toward a great wall, the sandstone glowing like honey in the last amber sigh of daylight. Babylon's gate stands there, huge and quiet, its blue-glazed bricks painted with rows of lions and bulls, symbols of power and divine protection, depending on whether you're a priest or just someone who really loves aggressive wall art. As you approach, two guards glance at you. One raises a brow but doesn't speak. The other taps the butt of his spear twice on the stone. It's not exactly a welcome, but it's not a threat either. Their bronze helmets glint, their eyes shadowed. One of them gestures, no words, and you step forward, boots touching that ancient threshold. Inside the gate, the city hums with the lull of early evening. Market stalls are shuttering, their owners swatting the last flies from sticky dates. Chickens are being herded home with sticks and curses, and the scent of cumin, cardamom, and sun-warmed goat cheese lingers in the humid air. You pass a man singing to his donkeys. You're not sure if it's a lullaby or a threat. A boy offers you a clay cup of water drawn fresh from the canal. He says it's sacred, which might mean holy or might just mean unfiltered. You sip anyway. It tastes earthy, ancient, and a little suspicious. Your feet lead you deeper into the maze of mud brick buildings until a figure in a long linen robe silently steps from a side alley. They don't speak, but they hold out a small object, a clay tablet, still warm from being sealed. On its surface, a message is etched in the tight, wedge-shaped cuneiform of the scribes. You don't read cuneiform. I mean, unless you do. And if so, wow, please tell us in the comments. But your guide, without a word, turns and gestures for you to follow. You glance once more at the tablet, which smells faintly of fire and lavender oil, then tuck it into your satchel and fall into step behind the robed figure. The further you walk, the quieter the city becomes. Homes give way to high walls and rows of date palms so perfectly spaced they seem measured by a god with a ruler fetish. Eventually, the air cools. You realize you're near the river, though you can't hear it. You can feel it, like a low heartbeat in the bricks beneath your feet. You arrive at another gate, much smaller than the first, half concealed by a tangle of vines and flowering plants. The door is bronze, with a thin crescent moon carved at eye level. The guide knocks once, twice, once again. A pause. Then the gate groans open on hinges slick with oil and old magic. You step inside. Immediately, the air thickens. Humid, fragrant, alive. This isn't the dusty Babylon of the street vendors and mud brick walls. This is something else. Something older. Vines curl across carved stone, flowering in impossible colors. Trees stretch upward, even though you're inside a walled space. The light here doesn't seem to come from torches or sun, just a soft, ever-present glow, like the aftertaste of fireflies. This, you realize, is the outer ring of the Hanging Gardens. The place scholars still argue about. Was it built by King Nebuchadnezzar II? Was it a myth? A misidentified palace? Or did it ever really exist at all? Well, you're in it now. So if it didn't exist, that's kind of your problem. The guide vanishes without a word. Typical. You take a step forward. Beneath your feet, the floor is cool tile. Intricate patterns of blue and white spiral out like waves. A trickle of water runs alongside the walkway, channeling past potted fig trees and arching willows. Somewhere above, you hear the faint clink of metal turning. A pulley? A chain? Something mechanical, distant but persistent. And just then, the breeze shifts. A scent hits you, a mix of crushed mint, rose, damp earth, and something sweet and sharp like saffron. You breathe it in, and for a moment you forget your name, forget the guards, forget your sandals, forget time. This place, it's not meant for the living, but it wants you to stay. A faint laugh echoes from deep in the foliage, but you can't tell if it's human or parrot. Either way, you've stepped inside, and the Hanging Gardens are awake. The bronze gate shuts softly behind you, not a slam, not a clang, just the subtle click of a decision being made. You glance back, half expecting the vine-covered wall to have vanished entirely. It hasn't. But somehow, it looks older now, thicker, like the vines have grown several inches, just in the time it took you to blink. Ahead of you, the path splits, left curves toward a stone arch where water glimmers faintly. Right disappears behind a curtain of flowering trees, white petals drifting down like snow that smells like honey and danger. You don't get the luxury of choosing. A figure appears again, this time robed in deep green, face hidden beneath a soft hood. Their hands are stained with soil and something more metallic, and when they raise one finger, it's not a request, it's an order. You follow. No words pass between you as you wind deeper into the garden. The sounds of the outer city fade entirely. All that remains is the gentle hiss of leaves brushing against each other and the quiet drip of water from unseen heights. Then the guide stops. You're standing at the edge of what looks like a ceremonial courtyard, framed by carved stone columns that twist like vines themselves, organic and precise. In the centre, a fountain shaped like a blooming lotus hums with layered rivulets of water, catching the last of the ambient twilight. Fireflies hover near its base, blinking slowly like they're sinking to a rhythm only they can hear. Before you can ask anything, although honestly, who are you even going to ask? Another figure steps forward. This one is cleaner, almost regal. They hold out a folded linen cloth, and resting inside it, a second clay tablet. This one bears the royal seal, sharp, unmistakable. You've just been summoned, by someone very high up, to a place not even all nobles are permitted to visit. The message on the tablet is shorter this time, but your guide murmurs the meaning as they lean in, voice soft and papery. You are called to witness what only the chosen remember. You consider asking if this witnessing involves gladiatorial vines or interpretive dance rituals involving goats, but the guide has already turned away, melting into the vines like a stage magician who moonlights as a houseplant. So you stand there, alone, in what you now understand is a waiting space, an antechamber of something sacred. A large beetle trundles past your foot. It pauses, does a little turn, like it's showing off its shell, which is iridescent and probably more expensive than your entire outfit, then disappears into a crack between the tiles. You notice that the floor tiles here are older than the path outside. They bear the faint shapes of cuneiform impressions, not writing for words, but symbols, almost decorative. Scholars still argue whether some Mesopotamian glyphs were language or simply sacred geometry. You're starting to think the answer is yes. The night deepens in colour, but not in darkness. The garden has its own light. Somewhere overhead, moonlight filters down through thick canopy vines, and small glazed lanterns swing on invisible currents, casting sleepy reflections across the stone floor. And then, footsteps. Two figures approach. One is tall and wrapped in golden linen, with sandals that barely whisper on the stone. The other carries a long staff wound with hanging petals that drip with dew. You don't know if this is ceremony or improv, but the effect is undeniably dramatic. They stop in front of you. The taller figure lifts their hands and draws back their hood. You half expect a stern priestess, or maybe an unnervingly perfect face with glowing eyes. Instead, it's a man, middle-aged, calm, unapologetically tired-looking. "Welcome," he says, in perfectly understandable Akkadian, and somehow your brain translates it like subtitles on autopilot. "The king requests your presence at the upper garden. It is not a request." He smiles, dryly. "You'll want to walk carefully." Before you can answer, the other figure touches your shoulder lightly and starts walking. You follow, because of course you do. The new path takes you along a narrow walkway suspended slightly above the ground. Beneath it, layers of flowers, mossy statues, and what looks like an impossibly slow-moving stream, its surface covered in lotus petals arranged in deliberate, swirling patterns. You pass another gate, this one half swallowed by blooming vines. An older woman sits beside it, weaving leaves into a crown. She doesn't look up, but she hums a lullaby, a real one, something soft and repetitive, the kind that tells your body, yes, it's safe now, go ahead and melt. And yet, your feet keep moving. You arrive at the next transition space, the second threshold. Here, the ground becomes more polished, marble shot through with green veins, like vines frozen in stone. Torches flicker nearby, casting bronze shadows against walls engraved with stories. One panel shows a man lifting water from the river with a spiral machine. The famed Archimedean screw, though historians still debate whether it was invented by the Greeks or borrowed, stolen, from the Babylonians centuries earlier. Another panel shows a pair of women gathering seeds from strange hanging pods while birds perch on their shoulders. It's unclear if this is agriculture or some botanical ritual, but they look happy, peaceful, maybe a little drunk. And then you reach it. The final hallway curves up gently. Plants grow in perfect arcs along the walls. The air cools slightly, and the humidity becomes a balm rather than a sweat trap. You smell cinnamon bark and something like orange blossom. At the end of the path stands another arch, this one lit from within by lanterns carved from alabaster. A breeze stirs the fringe of your sleeves. You've arrived at the true entrance to the inner gardens, a place only the chosen or the curious ever reach. There is no fanfare, no guards, just a slow, unfolding quiet. You step forward, and the gardens inhale. Your first step into the inner garden is met with silence, not the empty kind, but the layered quiet of a place that listens back. The air is thicker here, cool and perfumed with jasmine, myrrh, and that deep, loamy scent of earth that hasn't seen sunlight in generations. You move slowly, as if your very presence might ripple through the plants like a pebble in still water. The pathway winds upward in a gentle spiral, each level revealing a new layer of the hanging garden's mystery. The structure itself isn't like anything you've seen before, more like a living mountain than a palace. Columns are wrapped in vines that bloom year-round. Walls seem to sweat morning dew even in the dead of night. You catch glimpses of sleeping birds nested in carved nooks, and one tiny monkey, silver-furred and probably far too intelligent, watches you with the intense judgment of a bored librarian. You pass a fig tree that's somehow growing sideways out of the wall, its roots drinking from a channel of water engineered so precisely it flows uphill, almost. Scholars have long debated how the Babylonians managed their vertical irrigation. Terraced aqueducts, bronze screw lifts, ancient water magic. The monkey doesn't seem to care, and frankly, neither do the flowers thriving 3 stories off the ground. You run your hand along the wall. The stone is warm, not from the sun, but from something deeper, like the memory of heat. Faint cuneiform markings dance along the bricks, not etched in lines, but woven between the grooves, like threads in a tapestry. A historian once proposed that some Mesopotamian texts were designed not to be read, but to be felt, vibration and pattern as language. Standing here, it doesn't seem that far-fetched. Your footsteps lead you through an arch of flowering pomegranate trees, their fruit glowing like little lanterns. Beneath them, a shallow pool reflects the vines above, the water so still it feels more like a memory of a mirror than a pond. A frog blinks at you, then hops across the surface as if to say, "Come on, slowpoke." And so you follow. The next chamber opens with no door, just a soft curtain of silk suspended from the ceiling, swaying gently in the cool breeze. You pass through it and find yourself in a room that seems carved from moonlight. The floor is inlaid with polished lapis lazuli, its surface streaked with gold. In the center, a shallow bowl rests atop a pedestal, filled with water and floating petals. You peer into it, and the water changes. Your reflection fades, replaced by the image of a woman standing in a similar room. Her robes layered and fine, her hair oiled and woven with small bones and gold wire. She reaches into a stone basin identical to the one before you and drops in a small object, a beetle carved of turquoise. As it sinks, she whispers something, and the room around her fades. Then the image disappears. The bowl becomes still again. A whisper to your right. She was a priestess of Ishtar, the last to walk the upper chamber before the flood. You turn. It's your guide again, or maybe another version. Hard to tell. His robes shimmer differently now, less green, more silver. He moves like someone who isn't entirely bound by gravity. She believed this garden was built not for beauty, he continues, but as a message, a map, a preservation of what was lost during the first deluge. You tilt your head. The flood? Like, the flood? He nods once. The one that came before writing, before kings, before names. It's not entirely clear whether this is historical metaphor or bedtime story allegory, but let's be honest. Either one is working right now. He gestures for you to kneel by the bowl. You do, half expecting the water to leap up and dunk you like some mystical prank. But instead, the bowl hums, a low vibration that moves through your knees, into your spine, into your teeth. You feel it before you hear it, a voice. not speaking words, but relaying something deeper, an impression. Roots wrapping around stories, stones remembering footsteps, water dreaming of stars. Your guide places a hand on your shoulder, grounding you. Many believe the Hanging Gardens were a monument of love, he says softly, a king's gift to a homesick queen. Others say they were merely a display of wealth and irrigation prowess. He leans close, his breath warm with cinnamon and something faintly metallic. But what if they were neither? What if they were a memory palace, a living archive of what once was, and what may come again? Okay, that's a lot for someone who still has dirt under their nails from wandering a barley field earlier, but it makes sense, in the way dreams make sense, emotionally coherent, if not logically tidy. The guide straightens, then walks ahead without another word. You follow. The next corridor narrows, not in space, but in silence. You start to notice how the plants here move just slightly as you pass, not in fear, not in greeting, but in recognition. One vine gently brushes your shoulder. You glance down. A bloom opens at your side, a white flower, soft and luminous. You pluck it. You don't know why, you just know you'll need it later. Ahead, stairs climb into the dark, lit only by low oil lamps and the occasional glitter of a wet stone catching firelight. You ascend slowly, your footsteps muffled by thick moss growing between the steps. As you rise, so does the temperature. The air here is warmer, heavier. You pass another mural carved into the wall, this one showing a ziggurat half submerged in water, with birds circling above and tiny figures clinging to its tiers. A rare depiction of an ancient flood myth from the region. Historians still argue whether these Mesopotamian flood stories predate the Hebrew version, or whether they're all borrowed from something older, something buried in the mud of time. Your fingers brush the stone as you pass. It's wet. Not from weather, from memory. At the top of the stairs, another gate awaits. This one is different. It breathes. The gate inhales. You swear it does. Not literally, of course. There's no pair of giant lungs tucked into the hinges. But the feeling is unmistakable. The air pulls back slightly, like a sigh being held. And the moment your fingers brush the carved stone archway, the sensation shifts. The gate exhales, and so do you. You step through. It takes your eyes a moment to adjust. This part of the garden is darker, less curated, more ancient. The manicured terraces are gone. What lies before you now feels older than the rest, like something left untouched for centuries. If the outer garden was a royal gift, this is the root system, the origin place. Here, the walls are no longer lined with decoration. They're made of tightly packed mud brick, preserved in perfect condition. The scent is richer, deep soil, slow dripping resin, and something faintly metallic, like rainwater left in a bronze bowl. You catch a flicker of torchlight bouncing off the wall, revealing impressions left by hands, actual hands, not carved symbols, but prints, dozens of them, palm-sized and delicate, as if an entire family once passed through here one by one, pressing their hands to the wet clay. The hallway bends, and there it is, a chamber carved into the belly of the ziggurat structure itself, rough-hewn but deliberate. In the centre stands a large stone altar, low and wide. Not for sacrifice, don't worry, this isn't that kind of bedtime story. It looks more like a table. Around it, shelves of clay tablets rest in careful rows, each one sealed in wax, labelled with string and carved glyphs. You can practically hear the librarians hissing, "Do not touch the artifacts." But something about this place tells you these aren't meant to be locked away. They're waiting to be remembered. Your guide, now mostly a shadow with a voice, steps beside you. "This is the root chamber," he says. "Here the oldest dreams are planted. The first rain fell here. The first whisper passed from stone to seed." You blink. "And the first lie was told." "Excuse me?" You turn, half laughing, half nervous. "Sorry, lie?" He nods solemnly. "Yes, the lie of forgetting." A breeze brushes through the room, even though there are no windows. Some of the tablets rustle like leaves in a dry wind. You step closer to the altar. Resting at its center is a scroll, rare in this part of the world. Not baked clay, but parchment rolled and tied with a strand of woven hair. It doesn't feel morbid. It feels intimate, like a keepsake. Beside it is a bowl filled with a dark, glistening liquid. Ink, resin, blood, molasses. You're not about to taste it to find out. The guide speaks again. "The hanging gardens, as you know them, are only the canopy. This," he gestures to the chamber, "is the seedbed. Every plant above has a story that begins down here." You glance at the shelves. "So this is a library?" He grins faintly. "A garden and a library. In this place, they are the same. You know, somewhere there's probably a doctoral thesis being written that would explode just hearing that sentence." You kneel beside the scroll and feel a strange urge rise in you. Not to read, but to listen. You close your eyes, and the room begins to hum. The story unfolds, not in words, but sensations. You feel the rush of water as the ancient canals are carved by hand. You feel the scratch of reed styluses etching signs into wet clay. You feel a child laughing as they place a lotus seed into the soil for the first time, not knowing it will bloom long after they're gone. You also feel something else. Fire. A memory of something that burned here. Not war, not destruction, but purification. A controlled blaze to cleanse what no longer served. You see priests scattering barley over the ashes, singing something that sounds suspiciously like the world's first lo-fi lullaby. A whisper presses into your ear. To plant the future, one must harvest the forgotten. You open your eyes. The guide is gone again. Typical. You stand slowly. The scroll remains untouched, but you feel changed, like you've been rooted into this place. You take a breath and notice a new corridor to your left. Was that always there? You step into it. This one is narrower, made of limestone shot with blue-green veins. On the walls are painted murals, still faintly visible. They show images of animals no longer native to the region. Ostriches, elephants, even something that looks like a lion with wings. Whether this is memory or mythology, it's hard to say. One panel shows a tree stretching skyward, each branch labelled with cuneiform script. Some scholars believe this was a representation of knowledge itself, an early tree of life, long before biblical stories made it famous. You walk beside it, fingers brushing the painted bark. A leaf falls from the ceiling. You look up. There's no tree above. So you bend down and pick up the leaf. It's made of thin bronze, etched with the symbol for breath. You tuck it into your sleeve. Again, you don't know why. You just know it matters. You reach the end of the corridor and enter a new chamber. This one is circular, with a dome overhead made of clear crystal, open to the sky. Starlight pours in, reflected by a pool at the centre. Around it, stone benches curve like an amphitheatre. One man sits on the far side, old and still, like a statue carved in the shape of waiting. When he speaks, it's barely more than a breeze. "You've heard the roots," he says. "Now learn the bloom." He dips one hand into the pool, and the water glows. The pool lights up beneath the old man's fingers. Not like a lamp, not with flame, but with something subtler, a kind of cool, internal radiance. The light spreads in rings, illuminating the dome above you. You tilt your head and see the sky in perfect detail. Constellations you almost recognize, stars caught mid-blink, and a soft ribbon of mist that might be the Milky Way, or maybe just the breath of the gods. You step closer. The water doesn't reflect your face this time. It shows a city, not the one you know from maps or museum dioramas, but a breathing version of ancient Babylon. The camera pans, if we can call it that, slowly, as if guided by your own thoughts. The city is alive, oil lamps flickering in stone courtyards, merchants shouting gently about their date wine, children kicking clay balls through alleyways that curve like question marks. All of it bathed in the soft, lavender hues of an approaching dawn. The old man smiles without looking at you. "This is how she remembers herself," he says. "She?" you ask. "The garden. She sees not just her plants and walls, but her people, their laughter, their rituals, their mistakes." In the pool, a new scene bubbles to the surface. A group of young girls, their hair tied with reeds, weaving garlands from bright orange marigolds. They're preparing for a festival, maybe Akitu, the New Year celebration. One of them pauses, looks straight at you, or at least through you, and then bursts out laughing. You feel vaguely roasted. "That one grew up to be a scribe," the old man says, gesturing to her. "Wrote half the agricultural records we've ever recovered from this era, but she was always terrible at drawing goats." You chuckle. "How do you know that?" He shrugs. "Because the goats on her tablets look like angry potatoes." You stifle a laugh, which echoes strangely in the chamber. More images unfold. A group of temple workers hauling jars of sesame oil up a ramp, wiping sweat from their brows. An old woman whispering prayers to a cluster of onions, for luck or indigestion, who knows? Two children sneaking into the edge of the garden to leave bread for a fox that lives beneath the vines. It's not history in the grand sense. It's life. Messy, warm, sacred. You feel it in your chest like a tuning fork. This isn't a museum. It's a memory loop, curated not by archivists, but by the living energy of a place that refused to forget. Some scholars have a theory, fringe of course, that memory in ancient Mesopotamia wasn't just mental, it was spatial. You stored knowledge in places, not scrolls. You built temples, not just for gods, but as brains made of brick. Memory palaces, in the literal sense. Here, beneath the hanging gardens, that theory doesn't sound so wild. The old man gestures again, and the pool dims. "You've seen how she remembers," he says, rising slowly. "But memory isn't only what is preserved, it's what is chosen." You feel something shift in your pocket. The bronze leaf. You take it out and hold it to the light. The symbol for breath glows faintly. "Now," the old man says, "bring this to the blooming hall." Before you can ask directions, he dissolves, not dramatically, not with sparkles or wind, but simply vanishes, like breath cooling on glass. A door appears in the wall opposite you. You're past the point of questioning such things. You walk through. This hallway smells different. Herbs, crushed petals, old ink, and honeycomb wax. The walls here are smooth limestone etched with symbols, an alphabet of smells and tastes rather than phonetics. The kind of writing you'd only understand if you inhaled deeply and trusted your gut. You pass under a carved arch that reads, you think, "For those who dream in pollen." You're not sure if that's beautiful or mildly concerning. The blooming hall opens in one slow breath. It is enormous. A wide, tiered amphitheatre made of living walls. Greenery climbs every surface, blooming with night-blooming flowers and twisting vines. A soft pink mist hangs in the air, backlit by bioluminescent pods that pulse gently from the ceiling. There is no clear path, only petals underfoot, whispering with every step. At the center of the hall stands a raised platform, shaped like a lotus in bloom. Seated in the middle is a woman, older than time, or maybe just well-rested. Her eyes are closed. Her hands rest on her knees, palms up. She's covered in woven leaves, not clothing, and she radiates the kind of calm that makes you immediately aware of how loud your brain has been this whole time. You approach. She speaks without opening her eyes. "Did you bring the breath?" You nod and hold out the bronze leaf. She reaches for it, but instead of taking it, she cups your hand around it. You keep it. The garden doesn't need breath. You do. You feel the leaf dissolve against your palm. Warm, like steam. You inhale. Suddenly, the smell of the hall blooms tenfold. Basil, mint, ash, milk, myrrh, and something distinctly like almond bread. You feel lightheaded, in a good way. Like someone's whispering bedtime stories into your bloodstream. "You are not a visitor here," she says. "You're a gardener. Whether you plant seeds or stories is your choice." You look around. Vines shift and curl around the chamber like they've heard her too. A nearby plant unfolds a new bloom, as if in response. "Will I remember this?" you ask. She smiles. "That depends entirely on whether you forget it." Which feels like the kind of answer that's technically true and entirely unhelpful. She motions for you to kneel. When you do, the floor beneath you softens. Not like moss, but like memory. You're cradled in it, supported. Your breath slows. The room dims slightly, and above you something begins to sing. Not a voice, not a bird. The vines themselves. Their leaves tremble with a frequency older than song, older than sound, a lullaby for stone and sap. You feel your eyelids grow heavy, not from exhaustion, but from peace. You hear her voice again. "Rest now, little root. There's more to see tomorrow." You don't remember falling asleep, but something in you must have, because when your eyes blink open, the blooming hall is different, dimmer, quieter. The pink mist has faded into a deep indigo fog, and the bioluminescent pods overhead pulse more slowly now, like a heartbeat at rest. You're no longer on the floor, but gently reclined against a mound of moss shaped like a throne, carved by a sleepy toddler. It's ridiculously comfortable. Somewhere, a harp string plucks itself every few seconds, and you suspect it's not for your benefit. It's just a sleepy plant vibing. The woman in leaf-woven robes is gone. In her place, a new figure waits at the edge of the platform. A man in robes dyed deep lapis blue, trimmed with gold thread, like water that learned to walk upright. His hair is braided with tiny beads, and a silver sash wraps around his waist. He nods once when he sees you awake. "No rush," he says. "I've waited 3,000 years. I can wait 5 more minutes." You stretch, awkwardly aware you've drooled a little. The moss doesn't seem to mind. He offers a hand, and you take it. As he helps you stand, the scent of frankincense and cedar hits you like a polite wave at a fancy spa. "Where are we going now?" you ask, still blinking the dream crust from your lashes. He smiles faintly. "To the aquifers, beneath the roots, where the garden drinks." A spiral stair opens in the floor beside you, descending into what looks like the world's coziest abyss. Soft torchlight flickers along the walls, dancing across inscriptions that seem to change every time your gaze returns. One moment, it's cuneiform script, praising a goddess named Ninlil. The next, it's a recipe for barley stew. Your guide chuckles as you pass a line that reads, "Don't plant chickpeas too close to the river. You've been warned." That one's a classic, he says. The flood of 838 was aromatic. As you descend, the air cools, comfortably so. The humidity rises, thickening with mineral scent and something slightly floral. Soon, the stairs open onto a cavern glowing faintly with green-blue light. The walls ripple like mica. And ahead of you, water. A vast underground reservoir, silent and still as held breath. The ceiling arches high above, held up by thick stone pillars carved to resemble the trunks of ancient trees. Vines snake down from the stone canopy, dipping into the surface like they're sipping secrets. Your guide gestures forward. This is the depth mirror. The garden remembers above. It dreams down here. You step toward the water's edge. Your reflection appears instantly, but it's not. You, not entirely. The figure staring back has your shape, sure, but the clothes are older. Robes tied at the waist, a satchel of papyrus, scrolls slung over your shoulder. And your eyes are wide with something almost childlike. Wonder, maybe. Or the dawning realization that stories aren't told by words alone. You squat beside the edge and dip your fingers in. Ripples bloom outward, revealing images beneath the surface like scrying glass. A priest in white robes teaching a group of children how to trace constellations into wet clay. A weaver spinning thread from flax, humming an ancient tune that sounds suspiciously like a lullaby your grandmother once sang. A caravan arriving at the outer gates of Babylon, carrying cinnamon and lapis, the smell of spice curling like smoke into the warm evening air. You feel a tug at your sleeve. Your guide hands you a small vial. Inside, a pale golden liquid, warm to the touch. Memory nectar, he says, pulled from the deepest veins of the aquifer. Sip only when the dream begins to fade. You nod and tuck it away, not quite sure if this is metaphorical or if you're about to star in a very soft-brained Indiana Jones remake. Will it help me remember what I see? You ask. He shrugs. It depends. Some memories want to be kept. Others prefer to stay planted. You lean back from the water's edge as another vision unfurls beneath the surface. A young woman writing on a tablet, late into the night, her lamp flickering. She pauses, looks up, and mouths something. You lean in, trying to make out her words. The guide whispers beside you, translating. She says, "If I write this down, I won't forget who I was." You watch her blow gently on the clay to dry it. Then she folds the tablet in a woven cloth and tucks it into a wall niche. The scene fades. A pause. Then your reflection returns. But this time your eyes are older. Not aged, wiser, weathered by memory. The guide places a hand on your shoulder. The garden grows downward first, roots before blossoms. You nod, almost absent-mindedly. Somewhere above, water begins to trickle, barely audible, like the sound of someone pouring tea in another room. You turn and follow your guide down a narrow tunnel that branches off the reservoir. The walls here are different, softer, covered in lichen that glows faintly with its own bioluminescence. Tiny mushrooms cluster near the ground, each the size of a fingernail, pulsing slowly like sleeping hearts. As you walk, you feel something breathe beneath your feet. The roots of the gardens, the guide says softly, aren't just plants. They're ideas, intentions. You glance down. Indeed, the ground glows faintly with slow, shifting symbols, like someone wrote on the dirt with moonlight. As you step, they rearrange themselves. Images of boats, suns, fish, and trees. Some of it looks oddly modern, almost like code. Some historians believe the Sumerians invented writing to track taxes. Your guide says, amused. But here? It began with dreams. You nod slowly. You believe it now. The tunnel opens into a final chamber. Here, vines hang thick from the ceiling, and a circular stone platform sits at the centre. A single plant grows from the platform, unlike anything you've seen before. Its petals are translucent, shimmering between violet and blue. Its stem pulses faintly with light, and at its base, a stone basin catching a slow drip of golden water. The heart root, your guide says, the memory of all who came before. You approach it slowly, reverently. The air feels heavier now, but not in a bad way, like standing in a cathedral or holding your breath before telling a secret. You kneel, place one hand on the basin. The water ripples, and you hear everything. Laughter, rain, shovels, scribes, barley, prayers, myths, names, all of it in a layered tapestry of gentle noise. Not overwhelming, not chaotic, just full. You close your eyes, and you whisper, "I will remember." The flower shimmers. The shimmer of the heart root doesn't fade. Instead it pulses, once, twice, then sends a slow wave of warmth up your arm, through your shoulder, and straight into the softest parts of your memory. Suddenly, you're not you anymore. Not entirely. You're standing in the middle of an ancient courtyard, somewhere between dreams and stone. Babylon breathes around you. You smell wet clay, fig leaves, baked brick, and the faint metallic zing of bronze. Children's voices echo across the plaza, giggling in the kind of laughter that has no age. It's a memory, but also somehow real, as if this root has grown backward and forward in time to bloom just for you. You turn your head. To your left, a woman balances 2 amphorae of water across her shoulders, with a grace that suggests she's done this since birth. Her feet are bare, her smile is tired, but kind. She hums something under her breath, a tune that feels oddly familiar, though you've never heard it before. Maybe it's a garden song, maybe it's the melody of memory itself. "Don't let the heat fool you," she says, seemingly to no one. "It's planting season." You look down. You're holding a basket filled with small round seeds. Millet, from the looks of it. Your hands move on their own, plunging into the warm soil in small, practiced motions. The rhythm is soothing. Dig, drop, press, dig, drop, press. And just like that, you're someone else again. A bearded man scribbling with a stylus on a clay tablet, seated under a shaded arbor hung with vines. You're recording the inventory of temple offerings for the festival of Ishtar. Jars of sesame oil, loaves of honeyed bread, 2 baskets of dyed wool, and something cryptically labelled goat-shaped sweet. You make a note to investigate that one further later. A historian once argued that Mesopotamian scribes had one of the most difficult jobs in the ancient world, juggling mathematics, mythology, and bureaucracy in a single waxy tablet. Another claimed they were the world's first accountants. But down here, beneath the hanging gardens, where roots remember deeper than scrolls ever could, you suspect the truth lies somewhere in between. You blink again. Now you're standing ankle-deep in river silt, net in hand, dragging for catfish, with a boy no older than 10. He laughs every time you miss. "You've got the splash of a hippo," he says. You pretend to be offended. The water is cool, the reeds sway in the breeze, and far off you can see the silhouette of the ziggurat, rising like a sun-baked wedding cake over the city skyline. The boy pauses, serious for a moment. "When I'm older, I want to be a boat carver," he says, "or maybe a priest, or maybe a boat-carving priest. That's allowed, right?" You nod, solemn. "Absolutely. Sacred ferries are very in right now." He grins, then points upriver. "That's where the garden drinks from." You follow his gaze, and just like that, you're swept up and away. Now you're flying, not with wings, not exactly. more like a feather drifting on ancient wind. Babylon rolls beneath you, terraced rooftops crowded with herbs and citrus trees, clay ovens smoking gently, a procession of oxen pulling carts filled with glistening dates, old women trading stories, and sesame seeds in the shade. The Euphrates glints like a lazy serpent, looping its way through the veins of the city. You glide past the hanging terraces, water spills from hidden aqueducts, splashing down into troughs where gardeners in striped linen tend to beds of lavender, hyssop, and rare papyrus. Some of the plants grow in boxes carved from imported cedar, an absurd luxury, really. Others burst freely from the soil, indifferent to symmetry, climbing the garden walls like they've got somewhere to be. And at the heart of it all, the garden source. Not a well, not a spring, nothing so simple. It's a stone channel carved centuries ago, buried and forgotten by most. It carries water from the river through a network of ancient ducts, some of which are more myth than map. Historians still argue whether the hanging gardens were fed by an Archimedean screw, an elaborate pulley system, or simple gravity. But down here, in this woven dream, it doesn't matter, because you see how it works. And it is beautiful. Plants don't just grow here. They remember how to grow. They remember who planted them, who touched them, who sang lullabies while digging their beds. Every fig, every frond, every curling vine is a whisper from the past, echoing through chlorophyll and mud. You land, softly, on a mosaic path. The tiles depict a man holding a flower up to the sky, his other hand pressed over his heart. Beneath his feet, vines swirl outward, encircling images of animals, stars, rivers, and you. Yes, you. You're there, stylized, cartoonish, with wide eyes and a cloak of shadow, standing at the edge of the garden, one hand outstretched. You reach down and touch the tile. It's warm. Your guide, who somehow reappears without walking, says, "Memory is recursive here. What blooms now, bloomed before, and what blooms before might yet bloom again." You stare at him. That's not helpful. He laughs. "Welcome to Mesopotamian metaphysics." He leads you on, deeper into the garden's memory. You pass a quiet pool where someone once built a shrine to Tammuz, the god who dies and returns each year. It's covered in carved lilies and bird feathers. Offerings still sit beside it, small beads, dried figs, a single copper ring. No one's touched them in centuries, but the reverence hangs in the air like a song you don't quite remember the words to. A memory floats to the surface, uninvited. You're a young priestess, singing a lamentation hymn on the longest night of the year. Your voice trembles in the cold, but you sing anyway, because you believe the dawn listens. Then it fades. You're you again, rooted in now and not, because now is elastic here. You stop beneath a flowering tree, one with pale, translucent blossoms that hum faintly as the wind stirs them. A small tag hangs from one branch. It says, in curling Sumerian, "To the one who walks softly. Thank you." You smile. You don't know who left it. You don't need to. Some memories are planted for others to find. The scent of the flowering tree still clings to your clothes as you move through the next corridor of living memory. It's gentler here, less saturated, like the dream has decided to dim the lights and lower the volume just a bit. A kind of intermission for the soul. Your guide trails behind now, letting you lead. You find yourself walking along a narrow path of pressed earth, flanked by walls of clay jars stacked in neat rows. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Some are sealed with wax, others left open to breathe. A few emit a faint, floral perfume. Others smell unmistakably like pickled onions. Each is labelled with a single clay tag. You pause to read one. Rainwater from the year of the short flood. Another. Laughter of two sisters. Midsummer. A third. Failed poem. Buried anyway. You run your fingers along the curve of a jar stamped with a crescent moon. It hums softly at your touch. These are no ordinary storage vessels. They're mnemonic urns, you realize. Containers not just for goods, but for moments. And apparently, Mesopotamians stored everything, including bad ideas and emotional hiccups. Respect. Think of them as time capsules, your guide says, finally stepping beside you. This part of the garden collects what people tried to forget, but couldn't. You raise an eyebrow. Like guilt? Like singing the wrong hymn during a solstice and pretending it was jazz? A real historical fact pops up in your head. Mesopotamians did keep clay tablets recording omens and dreams, entire archives of portents scratched into neat rows of symbols. One even described a man dreaming of a three-headed sheep and concluded that the river will flood, but only halfway. Accurate? Maybe. Comforting? Not remotely. Here, that same instinct to preserve has bloomed into something more emotional, an archive of feeling, a memory library, softly lit. You walk further. The jars give way to wall niches filled with little offerings, broken combs, dried figs, reed pens, shreds of linen robes. One holds only a small clump of clay with 2 thumbprints pressed into it. Another contains a tiny, carefully tied knot of gold thread. You get the sense that these aren't relics. They're keepsakes from someone's soul. One of them, the thread, starts to glow faintly as you stare. You hear a voice, not aloud, but through your bones. Her hair smelled like tamarisk leaves. It says, low and aching. I never told her. And just like that, the glow fades. You exhale slowly. Is this part of the garden still alive? You ask. Your guide shrugs. Is memory alive? Ask any old man with a long beard and a bitter smile. You continue walking until you reach a round, low room where the walls breathe. That's not metaphor. Well, maybe a little. The plaster expands and contracts slightly, rhythmically, as if the space itself is meditating. At the centre sits a raised basin, carved from black basalt, filled with dark water, so still it looks like obsidian. Reflection well, your guide whispers. You don't see your face, you see your last moment of clarity. You glance at him sideways. That's not terrifying at all. He grins. Welcome to ancient relaxation. You kneel beside the well. As you peer in, the black water shimmers, and instead of your face, you see yourself again, but seated in a quiet library. Papyrus scrolls surround you, and a sleepy cat curls in your lap. You're copying a story in neat lines. A story about a person who wandered into a hidden garden and couldn't quite tell if they were awake or asleep. And you laugh. Out loud. Because of course you are. You shake your head, blink, and rise. You always were good at recursion, your guide mutters. You head toward a small archway at the edge of the breathing room. Above it, a single word is painted in deep indigo script. Zakar, one of the lesser-known gods of dreams and whispers. According to some old texts, Zakar lived inside people's throats and only emerged when they talked in their sleep. Charming. You step through the arch, and you're somewhere new again. A narrow garden corridor shaded by date palms and olive trees. Beneath your feet, the soil is warm and soft. To your left, a narrow canal trickles gently, the water looping in lazy spirals around carved stones shaped like fish and stars. Everything here is slower, softer, dreamier. Even your footsteps make less sound. You glance upward and realize the leaves above filter sunlight in pulses, as though time is exhaling through the branches. You pause by a low bench, made of woven reeds and padded with linen. You sit. The breeze carries scents: coriander, rosewater, and something baking. Fig bread, maybe. A young girl appears across the path. She holds a tablet in her hands, inscribed with neat, cuneiform rows. She doesn't speak, but walks toward you, kneels, and places the tablet at your feet. It reads, "If you're reading this, the garden remembered you." You look up, startled, but she's already gone, vanished into a shimmer of leaves. "Sometimes they visit," your guide says gently. "Echoes, fragments." You touch the tablet. It's warm. In the real world, outside of roots and rivers and ancient jars, Mesopotamians used cuneiform not just for recording trade or weather, but for spells, lullabies, and love letters. Thousands of them, etched into clay and stored in temple libraries that haven't seen daylight in 3 millennia. Most still haven't been translated. "Maybe that's the point," you say aloud, "to stay unread." Your guide tilts his head, or to wait for the right reader. You rise from the bench, and the canal beside you begins to glow softly. A boat emerges, small, reed-wrapped, utterly silent. No oars, no ferryman, just an invitation. You step in. It drifts forward into the quiet shimmer of Zakar's domain, the water closing around you like a lullaby. The reed boat rocks gently as it glides forward. No oars to guide it, no sails to catch the faint breeze, just the silent current of memory beneath you. You lean back, letting the soft curves of the craft cradle you like a lullaby spun from papyrus and river whispers. The water's coolness seeps through your sandals and mingles with the earthy scents of mud and blooming date palms. Somewhere nearby, a bird sings a slow, watery call, half real, half imagined. The boat drifts beneath an archway carved from smooth limestone, engraved with figures of gods and goddesses, weaving through spirals of vines and stars. You catch a glimpse of Ishtar herself, her gaze serene, hands outstretched in invitation or blessing. Historians still argue whether her temple's role was purely religious or served as a community hub. But here, beneath the hanging gardens, her presence feels both personal and cosmic. As the boat carries you deeper into the garden's secret veins, you notice floating lanterns drifting past, soft pools of amber light bobbing gently in the twilight air. Each lantern carries a tiny offering, a folded leaf, a ribbon, a whispered prayer inscribed in cuneiform, carried on the breath of thousands of forgotten nights. The lantern closest to you glows a little brighter, and when you peer inside, you see the image of a woman tending to a small grove of pomegranate trees. She hums a song you don't recognize but feel you almost know, the kind of melody that nestles into the corners of your mind, just out of reach. The pomegranates in her hands seem to pulse with a quiet life, droplets of juice glistening like rubies against the soft dusk. Your guide whispers, "Pomegranates were sacred in Mesopotamia, symbols of fertility and the cycle of life and death. Some say they held secrets of the afterlife. Others argue they were just delicious snacks." You grin. "I'm betting on delicious snacks." You drift past a small stone pavilion where the faint sound of a lyre strums slowly, almost imperceptibly, in the background. A figure dressed in flowing linen robes sits cross-legged, composing a hymn. The music floats around you, a soft soundscape that seems to slow your heartbeat and smooth the edges of your thoughts. You feel the urge to close your eyes, to sink fully into the moment, but instead you lean forward and trace the carvings etched into the pavilion's columns. Scenes of harvest festivals, fishermen casting nets, children playing along riverbanks. Each image tells a story, frozen in stone, but alive in memory. Historians still debate whether these carvings were purely decorative or served as teaching tools for those who could not read cuneiform. Here they feel like windows, invitations to step inside a living story. The boat nudges gently against a low dock, where a small group of figures gather, a mix of farmers, priests, and artisans. They laugh softly as they exchange bundles of wheat and jars of date syrup. One elderly man lifts his cup to the sky in a silent toast, his eyes sparkling with unspoken stories. You realize this scene feels more alive than any museum display, more vibrant than any history book. Because here, beneath the hanging gardens, the past isn't past, it's an embrace. You catch your breath and ask, how much of this garden is real and how much is memory? Your guide smiles, a slow, knowing smile. Maybe that's the question we're all trying to answer. The boat drifts onward, carrying you gently through the twilight as stars begin to twinkle faintly above the leafy canopy. Somewhere, far off but somehow near, you hear the distant murmur of the Euphrates flowing, steady, eternal, a river of stories that never quite ends. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the rhythm of the garden pulse beneath you, the heartbeat of a world long gone but never forgotten. The reed boat carries you deeper into the garden's heart, where shadows mingle with the soft glow of twilight. The air cools just enough to brush against your skin like a whispered secret, and somewhere nearby a faint hum of ancient melodies threads through the trees. The sound is so subtle you wonder if your mind is playing tricks, or if the garden itself is humming to you. You peer over the edge of the boat and watch water lilies drifting, their white petals catching the last light, floating like silent messengers on the dark water. Their reflections ripple softly beneath, blurring the line between sky and river, dream and reality. Your guide's voice is low, almost conspiratorial. The hanging gardens might have been an oasis created by King Nebuchadnezzar II to soothe his queen's homesickness, though some scholars question if they ever existed, as the legends say. You nod slowly, letting that sink in. Real or myth, the garden feels utterly alive, rooted in memory and desire, a place where longing blooms like the flowers overhead. You catch a faint movement among the trees. A figure in flowing robes steps into a patch of moonlight. It's a gardener, tending a vine heavy with pomegranates. She moves with deliberate calm, pruning branches as if coaxing stories to grow alongside the fruit. You watch, spellbound, as she stops and holds a fruit up to the moonlight, its ruby-red seeds glowing softly. They say the pomegranate was sacred, a symbol of life's cycles, your guide says, but some cuneiform tablets hint at a darker tale, one where the fruit binds souls to the underworld, a kind of ancient "don't eat this" warning. You grin. Classic. The gardener turns, her eyes meeting yours across time and space. You feel a pulse of recognition, like she knows you've come a long way to visit. Behind her, the lush greenery fades into a delicate maze of water channels, tiny waterfalls trickling like whispered secrets. The garden is alive with water's song, every drop a note in a timeless lullaby. You drift on, thoughts swirling like the gentle breeze. Somewhere you remember that ziggurats themselves are often debated by historians. Temples, observatories, power symbols. Here, beneath the gardens, those questions dissolve into the cool night air. Your boat slows near a pavilion, draped in wisteria vines. The scent is intoxicating, heady and sweet. A figure sits inside, tracing symbols on a clay tablet, the stylus tapping softly. You lean closer and read the inscription. To dream is to live twice. The phrase hums in your mind, and you wonder how many dreamers have passed through this garden before you, their hopes and fears folded into the soil and sky. You close your eyes and breathe deeply. The night is full of stories, and you're listening. You settle deeper into the rhythm of the garden's evening, the soft rustle of leaves mixing with the distant murmur of water weaving through stone channels. The boat floats gently, carried by a current that feels both ancient and new, like a secret told softly through time. Ahead, you glimpse a low stone archway, cloaked in ivy and glowing faintly in the moonlight. As you drift closer, the arch reveals a narrow staircase winding downward, carved directly into the earth. It's cool here, the air thick with the scent of damp clay and wild herbs. A faint echo of dripping water, rhythmic and soothing, fills the space. You step off the boat and begin descending, your fingers brushing the smooth, worn stones. Each step takes you further from the world above and deeper into a secret chamber, a hidden sanctuary beneath the gardens. Your guide's voice follows you softly. Some say the Hanging Gardens had secret cellars where priests kept sacred scrolls and rare plants, places few ever saw. You reach the bottom, where a cavern opens, lit by glowing fungi clinging to the walls like tiny stars. The light reveals shelves carved into rock, lined with pots of soil and strange roots coiling within. These are no ordinary plants. They're herbs known for their healing properties, used in ancient Mesopotamian medicine and ritual. You kneel by a pot, holding a sprig of silphium, a plant lost to time, but once prized across the ancient world. Silphium was so valuable that it was said to be worth its weight in silver, your guide says, though some argue it was mythical, a kind of botanical urban legend. The air here feels thick with history and mystery, and you inhale slowly, imagining the hands that tended these plants, whispering prayers and incantations as they worked. In the quiet, you hear a voice, soft, almost like a breath, repeating an ancient incantation for protection and fertility. It's the voice of a priestess, echoing across centuries, blending with the murmurs of water and stone. You close your eyes, letting the whispered words wash over you. The garden above fades away, replaced by the steady pulse of earth and life below. When you open your eyes again, you notice a small clay tablet resting near the pots. It's inscribed with a peculiar script, a blend of symbols and drawings. Some say this was a form of early shorthand, or a coded language for ritual purposes. Your guide shrugs. Historians still debate its exact meaning. Some think it's a guide for dreamwalkers. Others believe it's a recipe for a forgotten elixir. You smile, feeling the allure of mystery threading through the garden's roots. Rising slowly, you retrace your steps back to the surface, the cool night air welcoming you once more. Above, the stars shine brighter, as if celebrating your return. You step back into the boat, the reeds parting gently as you resume your slow voyage through the Hanging Garden's endless whispers. The boat glides forward once again, carrying you through a quieter part of the gardens where the trees seem to lean in, their leaves whispering secrets just beyond your hearing. The night air carries the scent of jasmine and myrrh drifting softly from clustered shrubs that seem untouched by time. You breathe deeply, savouring the moment, the way the world here blurs the line between dream and reality. Ahead, you notice a stone bench carved with the image of a lion, the symbol of Ishtar's fierce protection. A slender figure sits there, head bowed, fingers tracing the grooves of a clay tablet. You drift closer, catching fragments of her whispered murmurs, prayers, poems, maybe even curses. Her voice is a soft thread winding through the cool night. Did you know, your guide whispers, that lions were often depicted not just as guardians, but as symbols of royal power and divine fury? Some tablets suggest that kings likened themselves to lions to project strength and authority. You nod slowly, watching the woman rise and stretch, her shadow rippling over the garden walls like water. She moves toward a nearby fountain where water spills gently from a carved bull's head, pooling into a basin lined with smooth stones. Inside, the air is thick with incense, sweet, resinous, and slightly sharp, like the memory of a long-forgotten summer. The flicker of oil lamps casts dancing shadows that play along the murals, making the figures seem alive for a moment, caught between the past and the present. You notice an altar covered in small offerings, jars of honey, fresh dates, sprigs of herbs, and tiny clay figurines shaped like animals and children. Your guide whispers, offerings were made to honor the gods, but also to keep the balance of the world, to invite prosperity and peace. You crouch beside the altar, imagining the prayers whispered here, the hopes folded into each gift. Somewhere you remember that honey was one of the prized treasures of ancient Mesopotamia, used not only for sweetness, but as a healing balm and symbol of divine favor. As your fingers brush a smooth stone, a faint vibration pulses through the air. You laugh softly, thinking, if only these stones could talk, what stories would they tell? Probably about the endless debates among historians whether this temple was purely sacred, or maybe even a place of early astronomical observation. The thought makes you smile as you lean back against the cool stone wall, letting the quiet settle over you like a soft blanket. Outside, the garden continues its slow breath. The trickle of water, the rustle of leaves, the distant song of nightbirds. You close your eyes and feel the night wrap around you, full of gentle mystery and ancient dreams waiting to be rediscovered. You step away from the sanctuary, the scent of incense lingering faintly on your skin as the garden unfolds around you like a living tapestry. The moon hangs low, its silver light filtering through the leaves and casting delicate patterns on the soft earth beneath your feet. The air feels cool and still, yet alive with the hum of unseen creatures stirring in the shadows. Ahead, a narrow path lined with polished stones leads you toward a small grove of fig trees. Their twisted branches stretch skyward, heavy with dark fruit that gleams faintly in the moonlight. You reach out to brush a ripe fig between your fingers, feeling the smooth skin and the promise of sweetness within. Your guide's voice breaks the silence, warm and inviting. The fig was a sacred fruit in Mesopotamia, sometimes called the fruit of knowledge. It appears in many myths, symbolizing fertility, wisdom, and the cycles of life. You smile at the thought, imagining ancient storytellers weaving tales around campfires, passing these meanings from generation to generation. Nearby, a gentle stream trickles over smooth stones, the sound a soothing counterpoint to the soft rustling of leaves. You pause by the water's edge, dipping your fingers into the cool current. It's clear and fresh, a lifeline that has sustained countless lives along the Euphrates. Your mind drifts to the irrigation systems that once brought this water to thirsty crops, a marvel of human ingenuity born from necessity and care. Historians still debate the extent of these early irrigation works, your guide says softly. Were they massive public projects or small local efforts? Either way, they transformed the land and people's relationship with nature. You lean back against a tree trunk, feeling the rough bark beneath your hand, grounding you in this moment of quiet reflection. The garden's life pulses gently around you, the distant call of a night bird, the faint rustle of small animals moving through the underbrush. As you close your eyes, you picture the gardeners of old tending these fig trees with reverence and hope, knowing that each harvest was a gift from the gods and the earth. A soft breeze carries the scent of fig and earth, wrapping around you like a tender embrace. You breathe in deeply, feeling the calm seep into your bones, and for a moment, the garden and you become one. A timeless dance of life and memory beneath the stars. You rise from the fig grove, the cool night air carrying whispers of distant laughter, and the soft patter of footsteps along stone paths. Your journey leads you toward a slender canal, lined with tall reeds swaying gently in the moonlight. The water glimmers, reflecting clusters of stars like scattered jewels tossed across the surface. A solitary fisherman stands knee-deep in the canal, his silhouette framed by the soft glow of lanterns hung from nearby poles. His hands move with practiced ease, casting a woven net into the water with a fluid grace. You watch, mesmerized by the quiet ritual, a dance between man and river that has played out for thousands of years. Your guide speaks softly. Fishing was an essential part of daily life here. The Euphrates and Tigris teemed with fish, providing sustenance and a steady trade commodity. Some ancient records even describe fish as sacred symbols of fertility and renewal. You smile, imagining the patience required to wait for a catch beneath the shimmering surface. It's a peaceful scene, far removed from the clamour of royal courts or city markets. Nearby, carved stones depict fishermen hauling in their nets, alongside images of fish that might look familiar to you: carp, catfish, and even the elusive marsham, a fish only mentioned in scattered texts that some scholars think might be mythical. You lean closer, tracing the worn carvings with your fingers. Historians still argue whether some of these creatures were real or symbolic, your guide notes. But the importance of the river's bounty is undisputed. The fisherman pulls his net slowly, revealing a shimmering catch that glistens beneath the lantern light. He hums a quiet tune, an ancient melody that seems to ripple through the reeds and into your bones. You inhale the crisp night air, the scent of damp earth and fresh water mingling with the faint aroma of baked bread wafting from a nearby hearth. The garden feels alive with life, human, animal, and plant, woven together in a delicate balance as old as civilization itself. You settle onto a nearby stone, letting the serenity of this moment settle deep inside you, a gentle reminder of the quiet wonders beneath the hanging gardens. The gentle murmur of the canal lingers as you rise and continue your journey, the soft crunch of gravel beneath your feet, harmonizing with the distant croaking of frogs and the whisper of night breezes. The garden seems to breathe around you, a living mosaic of water, stone, and greenery, each piece telling a story older than the stars themselves. You come upon a small stone pavilion, its low arches framed by flowering vines, heavy with fragrant blossoms. Inside, a slender figure sits cross-legged on a woven mat, eyes closed, hands folded in quiet meditation. The stillness here is profound, almost sacred. Your guide's voice is barely above a whisper. In Mesopotamia, meditation and prayer were closely intertwined. People believed that quieting the mind opened channels to the gods, allowing messages to flow in dreams and visions. You watch as the figure slowly raises their hands, fingers tracing symbols in the air, cuneiform signs for life, peace, and protection. It's as if the ancient script itself is alive here, dancing between body and spirit. Nearby, small clay tablets rest on a low shelf, their surfaces etched with prayers and incantations meant to shield the garden from harm. You pick one up gingerly, running your fingers over the raised markings. Your guide adds, "Some tablets contain spells that sound almost like early forms of poetry. Beautiful and mysterious, their full meaning still debated by historians." You sit beside the meditating figure, the scent of jasmine and sandalwood filling the air. Closing your eyes, you feel the garden's pulse slow, syncing with your own breath, the boundaries between you and the ancient world blurring softly. A soft breeze stirs the vines above, carrying the faintest sound of chanting. A lullaby sung to the plants themselves, asking for their growth and protection. You remember the legends of dream interpreters, priests who guided kings and commoners alike through visions and omens. Here in the garden's heart, it feels possible that such dreams still float unseen, weaving through the night. You open your eyes slowly, the peaceful glow of the pavilion wrapping around you like a comforting embrace. The garden waits, silent and patient, as you rise to continue your journey beneath the stars. You leave the quiet pavilion behind and follow a winding path lined with lotus flowers, their pale petals glowing faintly under the moon's tender gaze. The soft hum of water droplets falling from leaves creates a rhythmic lullaby that blends seamlessly with the night's stillness. You pause to watch a dragonfly skim the surface of a small pond, its iridescent wings catching the starlight like fragments of a dream. Your guide's voice returns gently. Lotus flowers were powerful symbols in Mesopotamian culture, representing purity, rebirth, and the eternal cycle of life and death. You'll often find them depicted in carvings and seals, though scholars debate whether their sacred meaning came from local traditions or influences from neighbouring lands. You follow the path until it opens onto a broad terrace overlooking the softly flowing Euphrates. Below, fishermen's lanterns flicker like distant stars on the water, and you catch the faint laughter of a child playing nearby. The air is filled with the mingling scents of wet stone, fresh herbs, and the distant smoke of evening hearths. A stone bench invites you to sit, and you rest, gazing out across the river that has shaped so much of Mesopotamian life. The stars reflect in its currents, dancing like the cuneiform signs carved into ancient tablets, each one a story waiting to be read. Your guide muses. Historians still argue whether the earliest cuneiform was primarily for record-keeping, or if it held deeper spiritual significance. Either way, it was revolutionary. The first step toward capturing human thought beyond the spoken word. As you breathe in the cool night air, you notice the subtle flicker of fireflies weaving through the garden's shadows. Their glow, a gentle reminder of the life, pulsing quietly beneath the hanging gardens. The river's song hums softly in your ears as you close your eyes, feeling the rhythm of an ancient world fold around you like a warm, comforting cloak. Tonight, the garden's mysteries feel just within reach, inviting you to dream deeper beneath the stars. The night deepens as you rise from the riverside bench, the cool breeze weaving softly through the garden's lush canopy. You follow a narrow stone path, bordered by aromatic herbs, mint, thyme, and wild cumin, that release their subtle scents with every step you take. The earth beneath your feet is soft, damp from earlier rains, and the gentle crunch of pebbles is the only sound besides the distant call of a nightbird. You arrive at a small open courtyard where a group of artisans work quietly, their hands shaping clay and weaving reeds by the light of flickering oil lamps. Their focused expressions reveal a deep connection to their craft. each movement deliberate and rhythmic. Your guide's voice drifts over the scene. Craftsmanship was revered in Mesopotamia, not just practical, but a spiritual act. These artisans are continuing traditions that date back thousands of years, creating objects meant to honor the gods and bring harmony to daily life. You watch as a potter's wheel spins slowly, shaping wet clay into a delicate vessel. Nearby, a weaver's fingers move with practiced ease, intertwining reeds to form intricate mats that will soon adorn palace floors or humble homes. One artisan hands you a small clay tablet, its surface inscribed with a simple prayer for protection. You trace the cuneiform symbols gently, feeling the weight of countless hands that once carved these signs, hoping their words would reach the divine. Your guide adds, historians still debate whether these early writings were purely practical records, or if they also carried poetic and spiritual meaning, perhaps both at once. As the night wind stirs the courtyard's hanging lanterns, their warm glow flickers softly, casting long shadows that seem to dance in quiet celebration. You inhale deeply, the mingling scents of wet clay, herbs, and burning oil grounding you in this timeless moment. You smile, thinking how, beneath the hanging gardens, even the simplest acts, shaping clay, weaving reeds, whispering prayers, become part of a grand tapestry that connects past and present. The artisans work on, and you feel a gentle peace settle over you, a lullaby of creation and continuity in the heart of this ancient world. The garden seems to sigh with the approaching dawn, the stars fading as soft hues of pink and gold begin to brush the horizon. You find yourself wandering along a broad terrace where flowering vines spill over carved stone balustrades, their petals heavy with dew. The air is cool and sweet, carrying the promise of a new day's warmth. Ahead, a group of gardeners tend to the plants with gentle hands, their movements slow and deliberate. You watch as they prune branches, water roots, and scatter seeds, each act an expression of care and reverence for this living masterpiece. Their faces are calm, eyes reflecting the first light, carrying a quiet joy in their work. Your guide's voice drifts through the morning air. The hanging gardens weren't just a marvel of architecture. They were a symbol of balance between human ingenuity and nature's grace. Every leaf and flower was tended with love, a testament to a culture that understood the delicate dance of life. You step closer to a patch of blooming pomegranates, their ruby fruits glowing softly in the dawn. Your fingers brush a ripe one, feeling its smooth skin and the promise of sweetness within. You recall how this fruit was often linked to fertility and abundance, its seeds a metaphor for life's endless cycles. Nearby, a small group of children play quietly, their laughter light and free. One offers you a flower, a simple gift, bridging centuries. You accept, feeling the fragility and strength intertwined in its petals. You remember the countless stories shared beneath this garden's canopy, of gods and mortals, of rivers and rituals, of songs and silence. The garden has witnessed it all, a living memory cradled in stone and earth. Your guide concludes softly, historians still wonder if the hanging gardens were purely a royal fantasy or a real, tangible place. Either way, its spirit endures as a dream of harmony, beauty, and the timeless connection between people and the natural world. As the sun rises higher, casting golden light over the garden's verdant terraces, you take a deep breath, feeling a gentle peace settle within you. This night among the hanging gardens may be ending, but its quiet magic lingers, a soft glow to carry with you into your dreams. Wind down. The first light of dawn slips softly through your window, as the garden stories gently fade into memory. The rustling leaves and distant waters whisper their quiet lullabies, carrying you into a peaceful rest. You've wandered through ancient pathways, touched the cool earth, and listened to the murmurs of a world long past but never forgotten. Let your breath slow, your mind ease, and the soft hum of history cradle you like a gentle breeze. These moments beneath the hanging gardens are a reminder. Life flows in rhythms, stories, and dreams that connect us across time. Rest now, wrapped in the calm and wonder of ancient nights. The gardens will wait for you, patient and serene, whenever you return. Sweet dreams.